Michelle, it's always a pleasure to.
So sorry. So that is just to let everyone know the meeting is being recorded, right?
Okay. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to share some of my knowledge in practice and all the books that I'm reading at the moment and what I've read in the past and my knowledge in marketing. It's always good to maintain that connection with the marketing students. And connection, as you'll see, is a metaphor. And I'll go into a little bit more detail a little bit later. And so for this short lecture, I'll give a short introduction about what metaphors are and how they are applied to marketing specifically, and more specifically how they are applied to the customer journey and how they are related to stories. So before we start off with what metaphors are, we first need to understand how metaphors work in the brain. So the brain consists of brain cells called neurons, and those neurons connect with each other. Every single one of them can connect to up to 10,000 other brain cells or neurons. And so those neurons, when they connect together, they link together different thoughts, feelings, and past experiences that we've had. So when you hear the bell ring, you might think it's time for dinner or lunch. And so that's just, they call it an associative processor. So the brain associates one idea with another. We've all spoken to somebody, and then while speaking to them, we gone off track and thought of related events that's happened. That's because the brain associates different thoughts, feelings, and events with other thoughts, feelings, and events. And so as the brain, because the brain compares these experiences with one another, we also talk in that way. When we want to describe something to somebody, when we want to describe ice cream, for example, we say that ice cream tastes like vanilla because it associates the taste with the what it actually tastes like. Or we say that this new couch that I just bought is much more comfortable than the previous couch I bought, and in that way we associate this event with a past event. And so, but what couches and ice creams are all tangible. We can actually feel them. We can touch them. We can look at them. But what happens when we want to describe something that is intangible, that you cannot touch, that's not concrete? And so what happens when things are okay? Let me just go to the next slide. So this just basically shows that
no, what I'm sorry to interrupt you for a moment there. Do you want to perhaps share your screen with us so that we can see your side as well?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I can do it from my side as well. Know if I can.
It should be shared. It should be shared the way I've indicated. Is it not shared on your screen? So that's my other. That's the other screen. I can. Is it sharing at the moment?
Sorry, Mr. Van Zyl. I saw that it did share previously, but now I'm not. Well, I don't know if other people aren't able to see it.
Yeah, I did see my first slide. I actually did. Yes, thanks for that.
What I can do is I can share it from my side. Let's quickly see
Okay.
if this will work. Give me a moment.
Okay, it should be on the first page now.
Okay, well let's see. Maybe if you continue presenting, it will show up. Let's have a look.
It's on my side. It's showing the first slide at the moment.
Okay, let's give an indication. Students, can you see Mr. Van Zyl and a PowerPoint presentation, or do you only see him? Maybe somebody can send me a message in the chat box.
I only see.
Okay, I only see the camera. Okay, I'm going to share. Okay, let me try and share my screen. Let's see what happens. Okay. So just quickly go here. So sorry about that. Let's do this.
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, let me just see what is everybody else seeing. Let's do this. And let's see. Okay, can everyone see this? I see B said it's working. Okay, they can see the slide. So it must be the one on my side then, it seems. Which is a bit strange. But okay, I'm going I'm going to change the slides for you. You just let me know when I need to change slides. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So as I was saying, the brain associates thoughts, feelings, and experiences with other thoughts, feelings, and experiences, things that we've experienced in the past, and so that's why we compare one thing in terms of another to explain it when we try to explain it to somebody. But what happens when we want to describe or explain something that is intangible? And so some of those examples, I think, Michelle, if you go to the next slide. Yeah, that one. So if we want to describe how we are conducting science experiments, for example, or we want to describe money, or a brand, for example, how do we describe it? It's so abstract. So how do we make it more concrete, more tangible? And so one way we can do that is through metaphors. And metaphors is not simply saying one thing is like another thing. We are actually saying that thing is another thing. When Shakespeare says Juliet is the sun, he's not simply saying she is like the sun. He is saying she embodies what the sun is. And so, so it's a much better way of making things that are intangible more concrete. So when we talk about science, we talk about soft science, like psychology, or we talk about the hard sciences like physics. When we talk about money, for example, we use a metaphor called we use a river or water as a metaphor for money when we talk about cash flow or liquidity. And we also talk about, you've probably heard about freezing a company's assets or liquidating a company. That is a water metaphor we use in money. Online, for example, we can also use, we often use water as well. We call about surfing the internet or the next wave of technological disruptions. When we talk about brands, you've all heard about a brand personality. We're not simply saying that a brand is like a personality. We are saying that it actually is, it has a personality. And so brands have different personalities depending on the brand itself. And so, so metaphors is a very powerful tool to make something abstract more tangible and to actually embody what we are explaining. If we just go to the next slide, please, Michelle. So there was a guy many years ago called Gerald Saltman. He did some research in many different cultures all over the world, and he identified 7 metaphors that you find in every single culture. And that is very, very important for marketing, because these tools you can take with you wherever you go, all over the world, and it will still be relevant. That's the power of metaphors. And so I would really suggest you read the book on the right that Gerald wrote with his wife, Lindsay. It is a fabulous, fabulous book. He also wrote another book called How Customers Think, which is also fascinating. He's got his own company in the United States. Really, really mind-blowing how powerful metaphors can be for marketing. And so I just want to give you some examples of these different container metaphors. Or the container, for example, is a metaphor. What do we use containers for? We use containers to include something and exclude something else that we don't want in the container. So that's why we say something is in or out of shape. When after the holidays, when we've binged a little bit too much on the alcohol and the fast food, we say we are out of shape. We also say customers are in a good mood, or a customer is in a bad mood. So that's one where container is a good metaphor to describe the emotions, to make emotions more tangible for describing a particular situation. Other ways in which we can also use the balance metaphor is we talk about a balanced diet, where things, it's not too much or too little, it is just right. We also talk about a balanced lifestyle. We also talk about a work-life balance to describe an event that where a person does not spend too much time working or too much time, in leisure time. So it's a very tangible way to describe that situation. And the other metaphor that is very important for our purposes is the metaphor of journey. And the journey metaphor is a good way to describe stories. And so when we as marketers want to explain something to customers, or we want to get them to understand our marketing messages better, how do we then explain this journey that they're on? And one way to describe, to use this journey metaphor is by means of a story. Now, I will just give you some examples of the journey metaphor. I mean, there are tons of them. So one is, we talk about a tidal wave of emotions. We talk about, when we say our paths are splitting, or somebody is on the right track, or we talk about financial ups and downs, specifically in how appropriate for the times we are in at the moment. And so it really is a very powerful, relevant metaphor in the times we find ourselves. And so the journey metaphor is extremely relevant, and to explain stories. And yeah, Michelle, if you can just go to the next slide, please. Okay, so the reason why I said that the journey is such a powerful metaphor for us is when you look at when you give people a wrinkled piece of paper and you give them a smooth new piece of paper, every single person from 8-year-olds to executives will also always choose the wrinkled piece of paper to write a story about. And that is the reason why that is so is because the wrinkled piece of paper implies a history, a past, an event that has happened, with a present and a future. Something can happen to that piece of paper. So that wrinkled piece of paper comes with a story, whereas the smooth new piece of paper does not have some kind of history yet. And that's why stories are so powerful. Another reason why stories are incredibly powerful for use in marketing is because it is incredibly, it's far more, it's better processed by the brain, as opposed to just the number of facts that a person lists. If you just give people, blurt out a number of facts, they're not going to remember them. But if you put something in a story, people remember them. And one of the reasons is because every single sentence can be associated with something that has already occurred. So it's sentences that have been strung together in a particular sequence that makes sense. So it's easier for the brain to associate the different ideas with other ideas that already exist in a person's mind. So stories is, that's one reason why stories are also so incredibly powerful. So just want to give you one example of a company that have used journey as a successful metaphor. Is an athletics apparel company provided expert advice on getting back into shape, see the metaphor, in the weeks and months following childbirth. So the women that just had the child had now get into shape, and then it is a journey from just having had a child to getting back into shape and getting fit. So that implies a story, and the way they depicted that advertisement showed that people can relate to it because it is a story that is something that we all can actually relate to. And so, yeah, just two ideas that I want to leave you with is what metaphor does your brand own? Which of those 7 do you actually do you identify as being key in your company or your brand? Is it connection? Is it journey? Is it control? Is it any of the other metaphors that's important to you? And so it's also important to be consistent with your metaphors in your marketing communications. And yeah, just those two ideas to finish off with. If there are any questions, yeah, then I'll take them now.
Thank you so much, Werner, for that presentation. Let me just get my camera back on here. There we go. Thank you. Thank you so much. As always, very interesting. Ladies and gents, you might be wondering why metaphors, but of course, Werner's given you some wonderful information and hopefully some ideas, sparked some ideas for the projects that we're going to be doing in marketing of services. And I'm sure this bit of advice is going to come in extremely handy in the way that you're going to formulate your tasks and presentations to your clients. So that's the idea behind the presentation. Thank you for the insightful presentation, Werner. And just so that the class also knows, these slides will be on ClickUp for you if you want to have a look, especially if you want the name of that book. Let's quickly see, are there any questions for Werner? Let's put this on gallery view. Let's see. Oops. Any questions? Kyle has a question. There we go. Kyle, yes, you're welcome.
Hi, Kyle. Yes.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can. Loud and clear.
Perfect. I just wanted to go back to the deep metaphors you mentioned. You mentioned resource as one. Is it possible just to give us an example of what would be a resource metaphor?
So that might be knowledge as a resource, as a source of wisdom, for example. So if you tap into knowledge, you're saying that knowledge is a resource that you are actually utilizing.
Okay.
Let me just see if I've got another example. So time, we also talk about time as being valuable, you know, or time is money. So in other words, time is your resource, and you are running out of that resource when somebody's wasting your time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Good question, Kyle. Thank you. Due to time limitations, what I did was I just asked Mr. Van Zyl just to give us a brief overview and just touch on some important metaphors. Obviously, we would have loved to have spent 40 minutes or more on this. But of course, here on the screen now, I hope you can see it, is the name of the book that he mentioned. Very interesting book, and it might serve you well in the future, not only with the honours program. So it's something to consider adding to your bookshelf. Yeah, so a lot more that one can learn and investigate, but unfortunately due to time we just skimmed the top. But yes, let's see, are there any other questions? Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm talking and I didn't realize that I hadn't unmuted myself. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate that. This is one of those hazards of being in the virtual world, right? Anyway, let's see. I didn't see any other questions. So if that is everything, well, if there are no questions, I'm going to then thank Mr. Van Zyl very, very much. We really appreciate your time and your knowledge. I mean, it's incredible. Every time I speak to you, I learn something new. So I really appreciate your time, and all the best.